Okay, today's topic is theories of failure. Now you see here. So far we have discussed about theories of stress, theories of strain, then we have established stress and strain relation, and today we will close that part with a discussion on theories of failure, and the next part would be some problem solution. So, for that we will establish that governing equation of that particular problem, okay, through a displacement field as well as through stress field, whatever. So, for that the displacement equation of equilibrium that we will form, tomorrow we will discuss that, and today let us start with this. So, this link will give rise to this particular slide PowerPoint projection, which is downloaded here. Let me show you from this slide. Okay. So, the theories of failure. What is meant by theories of failure? This is basically the transition where our, say, continuum mechanics or the elastic behavior of material that ends. So, this demarcates that region. Okay. So, let us see what it is. The machine element is subjected to a system of complex stress system. It is important to predict the mode of failure. Why it is so? Because our material testing is done mostly for an uniaxial stress field, okay, through universal testing machine, or at the most we carry out some more testing in torsional testing machine, or some impact test we carry out. Okay. But in actual condition, a system can be under a complex stress system. So, biaxial, triaxial, okay, normal stresses, shear stresses, everything can be induced in a system. But our testing is not done for that particular type of loading. Material testing was done for mostly, let us take a uniaxial stress situation. Okay. So, then how to predict the failure condition. So, this is one of the reasons to discuss the theories of failure. Okay. And its purpose is to form a design methodology, okay, based on which we can fix a limit on this complex stress system. Okay. Okay. Theories of failure are essentially a set of failure criteria developed for the ease of design. Okay. Now, here are a list of some of the theories, and the question is why there are so many theories, because as we have seen earlier in material testing, that material behavior are not identical. For different materials, we have brittle behavior, we have ductile behavior, etc., etc. So, we have different theories of failure. Now, this is not a complete list. There are many other theories of failure, but these are the ones which are commonly used in mechanical engineering application, okay, for homogeneous isotropic materials. Okay. What are these? We will address them one by one. First one is maximum principal stress, okay, named after Rankine. Then principal strain, okay, named after Saint-Venant. Maximum shear stress, this is also known as Tresca's condition or Tresca's failure theory. Then strain energy density and a similar type of that is there, which is distortional energy density. Okay, this strain energy density is total strain energy, and this distortional energy density is the distortion energy, which means corresponding to the deviatoric stress of state. Okay. So these are the two ones. Other one is the octahedral shear stress theory, which is almost identical in some situations. They are identical to von Mises stress theory. Okay. So first let us go into that, but before that let us see what are these things. Material testing is limited to uniaxial stress state. This is what we have already mentioned. This is one of the limitation in material testing. And theories of failure, they predict either initiation of yielding or the fracture. Okay. So what is the general concept here? Okay. So in a multi-axial state of stress, that means for a complex loading situation, okay, actual failure, this can occur either due to yielding or due to fracture. Okay. If the phenomena is yielding, then it initiates to another branches of science, which is known as the theory of plasticity. Okay. And if the failure occurs due to fracture, it goes into another branch of solid mechanics, which is fracture mechanics. Okay. So these two parts are not in our course here, so they are dealt separately, different courses. Okay. Now failure of yielding, you understand here a particular machine member, it becomes unsuitable due to excessive inelastic deformation. So this is not a total fracture, breakage of the machine element, but deformation becomes so large that the machine part becomes unsuitable. Okay, you have to perform. So this mostly occurs in ductile material, to be, and fracture, this occurs in brittle material, where the machine component under that complex stress field, it breaks down, it tears apart, okay, and fractures. Okay. Now the thing is, there is no sharp demarcation line between ductile and brittle material.
Yes.
Okay. So there is a rough guideline, and we measure it by percentage elongation. If it is less than 5%, we say material is brittle, and more than 15% it is ductile, but there might be some materials which has an intermediate value. And again, a particular material, when it is subjected to a high temperature, a brittle material can behave as a ductile one, and again when the temperature is quite low, in sub-zero condition, a ductile material, it can also act as a brittle material. You know the failure of the Titanic, the ship, okay, it is attributed due to that. Okay. The steel, the major constituent of the ship construction, when it was in the cold water, went up to North America in that part, when it encountered with some iceberg and other things, the material became brittle, and then there was a fracture. So that condition was not considered in the design of that particular ship. So that failure of Titanic ship is one important aspect in the development of theories of failure, because no one predicted that such a ship, the Titanic ship, was some landmark achievement at that time, such a big ship. and it failed. You know about the movie, about that thing. So that is one aspect. So this thing happens, okay. So there is a fuzzy region between this yielding and fracture. So they are not totally independent phenomena. There is an interaction between them. Again, there are some other parameters here. One is this cyclic loading, which we often call the fatigue type of loading. Okay. So failure under this fatigue loading, actually it goes into fracture mechanics, because under fatigue loading the type of failure is a fracture, like a brittle fracture, the material fails. Okay. Then long term static loading at elevated temperature, it gives rise to creep phenomena. Okay. This is another aspect. The impact loading. Okay. So that means, course, we test this through IZOD impact or other impact testing. Okay, this is another type of loading. Now, work hardening means the material property changes due to repeated loading, and work hardening occurs in material. Some operations are there like shot pinning, etc. in manufacturing, by which material is work hardened. And quenching, hardening operation, they also change the material property as such. Okay. So these are some additional parameters which we need to consider when we are predicting failure of a machine component. Okay. Okay. Now yielding and fracture, we have visualized them already through material testing. Here are some more examples. So this is under compression a brittle material, how it fails. This is clear. So this is a failure at 45-degree angle. So clearly the shear stress is important in the failure of a brittle material. Okay. Whereas in ductile material, the material has a necking region. Okay. After testing, this is also what we have seen. If it is a torsional test, in torsional test, a ductile and a brittle material, they fails in different modes. Okay. They are different failure modes. This is a example of repeated loading or cyclic loading. See this nature, okay, this surface shows a fracture type of material failure. Okay. Even a brittle material, when under cyclic loading, it will fail like this, which is basically a brittle type material failure. Okay. So failure phenomena is different when it is under cyclic loading. Okay. So these require further elaboration. Okay. In fracture surface, this is under fracture mechanics, and here also we won't go up to this part. If it is beyond yielding, we say the material is failed. So this ultimate failure, before going into that state, there is a lot of yielding or plastic deformation in between. Yes. So that we are not focusing these two things. Now, what is the yield criteria or failure criteria here? So there, this is expressed in terms of stress state. Sometimes it can be expressed in terms of strain state also, because stress and strain, they are related as well. Okay. Or by an energy criteria as well. Combined stress and strain, they will give rise to energy, etc. And there is another parameter which is required. Mathematically, yield function, when it is expressed in stress state, sigma ij is stress state, this is another value which is a particular stress value which dictates the yield criteria or the failure criteria. So, in our case, in elastic behavior, we take yield stress as the failure criteria. If it is a strain state, then it would be a function of epsilon ij, and this particular value, instead of stress, it has to be a strain value, and usually we take the strain corresponding to the yield stress for the failure criteria. Similarly, we can take a energy field as well, and here the energy which is stored at the point of yielding, that particular value will take as in our failure criteria.
Yes, sir.
So, this is the thing. Now, the yield criteria, so the yield function is formed such that when this particular condition, this function is 0, we say material has yielded or there is a failure.
Yes, sir.
Now, otherwise, when it is less than 0, we are in safe region. The stress state is elastic. There is no failure, and this particular state, the condition in stress state or in other state of strain on energy, this function value greater than 0, it is not possible, okay, because this is not included in these failure criteria. This require further elaboration on the situation where again we have to see what is the yield criteria at that region. So, the thing is, the analysis can go up to a function value of 0. Our analysis cannot cross this particular limit.
Yes, sir.
This is the meaning of this thing, it is undefined. Okay. Now, to develop yield function, the components of multi-axial stress state, if we use this form, okay, it is combined into a single quantity, okay, that is known as an effective stress, and we compare this effective stress with the yield stress when this is yield stress in an appropriate form. This is the thing. Now, this is what we have already discussed. A single yield criteria now fails to predict the failure of all types of materials. This is already discussed. Now, let us come to the first one, which says failure occurs due to maximum principal stress. Maximum principal stress is the max of sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 3,
Yes, sir.
and if we subtract yield stress from this value, max of this minus yield stress. If it becomes 0, that means maximum principal stress has become the yield stress, then failure will occur.
Yes, sir.
This is the criteria. The same thing is expressed like this. Whatever is the maximum, you see in this diagram, the stress state is shown. Okay, this origin is at the middle of this particular material, say surface. There are 6 surfaces. The opposite surfaces has values yield stress. So, either in tension or in compression, failure can occur.
Yes, sir.
And this is one. So, what we need to do here for a multi-axial state of stress, for a complex state of stress, we need to find out the principal stresses, and we know how to find it out.
Yes.
We did analysis of stress, and then we will test for this. So, similar to this, there is another failure theory, which is maximum principal strain theory. What does it say? It says the maximum strain, okay, which comes under a multi-axial state of stress when this is greater than or equal to, or say when this reaches the value of strain corresponding to yielding, then failure will occur.
Yes, sir.
Quite clearly this is the strain corresponding to yielding, sigma y by E. And if sigma 1 is the max value of principal stress, this is the Hooke's law. Okay.
Yes, yes, sir.
This also we know from stress strain relation. This is the maximum value of strength. Okay. So if we equate this particular strain value with this epsilon y, which is sigma y by E or y by E, then we get failure criteria. Okay, this is clear. So what is the failure criteria now? If epsilon y is y by E and epsilon 1, the maximum induced strain is this. If we equate these two, what will happen? This 1 by E, that will get cancelled, and this particular value is becoming equal to y. So this particular quantity minus y, when this will become 0, okay, the material is going to fail. So this is the yield criteria. The yield function is given by this. This is clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is maximum principal strain criteria. The next one is maximum shear stress. Right. So what is shear stress corresponding to failure? If we test in universal testing machine, okay, in uniaxial state of stress, what is the maximum shear stress? In Morse circle, okay, sigma 2, sigma 3, they are 0. Sigma 1 is sigma y.
Yes, sir.
You draw a circle, what is the radius of the circle? Sigma y by 2. So sigma y by 2 is the failure criteria now. Okay. And in a general state of stress, when a body is under multi-axial state of stress, we will get sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 3, everything is there. We can find it out. We can also draw Morse circle. Okay.
Yes.
What is the induced shear stresses in such case? We have to find out which value is maximum,
Yes.
and half of that is the shear stress.
Yes, sir.
So half of this is equal to half of this sigma yield point. Half and half get cancelled. So max of this thing, okay, this difference is equal to sigma 1. So this is failure criteria. Or we can express a function f is max of this minus sigma yp. When that is 0, the material has failed.
Yes, sir.
So this is Tresca's criteria, the maximum shear stress criteria. Now you must note that Tresca was basically an experimentalist. Okay. So you will see later that at the corner points here, actually this is a two-dimensional state of stress. Okay. Here sigma 3 is 0. Plot of Tresca's theory in 2 dimensions.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if we analyze some biaxial state, okay, where your sigma 1 is say this particular value, negative of this value, and your sigma 2 value is something like that at 45 degree, we will get this particular value is giving or satisfying this equation. Okay. So that way this hexagonal shape will come, and we will see later that these 6 corner points of the hexagon, they are matching with another failure criteria, which is von Mises failure criteria. So to some extent this is matching with von Mises failure criteria as well. But then this failure criteria also applicable for brittle materials, as we have seen in those failure visualization here. For brittle material, obviously the failure is due to shear. This is a 45-degree plane. Okay. Under tension or compression, the failure of a brittle material will show this type of characteristic. So we use this failure criteria of Tresca's for brittle materials, as well as it has matching with Tresca's criteria with von Mises criteria at these 6 corner points of the hexagon. We will see it later. Okay, now application of this thing is also used in some applications like in slip line field theory. Now this is also an extension of this fact that in many materials under uniaxial stress field, the failure occurs at 45 degree. That we have seen, and this can be visualized through some testing here. So, you know, there are some experimental techniques for stress and deformation analysis. One is by using strain gauges, which we will be discussing, but another technique is done through photoelasticity test. Okay. So this is a test which is carried out on such a specimen. Okay. So when the specimen, it is made of transparent material, usually perspex sheet like that. Okay. When it is under tension, these type of lines they appear. Even if you observe an say mild steel specimen in universal testing machine, these lines they will appear in the test.
Yes.
You did
Yes,
testing machine, these lines were coming.
Yes.
So you have seen this. They are known as Loider lines, okay, because Loider first observed this thing, okay, known as Loider bands. So based on that, there are some theories. These are something which are used in contact mechanics, right, to find out the stress field at the point of contact. The slip line field theory follows this part. Okay, this is something not included in our coursework. Let us go next. The next one is strain energy density criteria. So this strain energy is total strain energy.
Yes, sir.
Right. What is the magnitude of this strain energy when a material fails? That means when yielding occurs. Get it from our stress strain diagram. Okay, that area under the curve, stress strain curve, is stored energy or strain energy. We say this is half sigma y into epsilon y, say. Okay, and this epsilon is sigma by E. So at failure the value is 1 by twice E into sigma y square. So this is the energy, strain energy corresponding to failure, say yielding, whatever. Now in a multi-axial state of stress, we have sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 3. Okay, associated with that we have epsilon 1, epsilon 2, epsilon 3. So what is the total energy there? This is the total energy part. Okay, this is clear. And here what is this epsilon 1? This is the epsilon 1. And similarly epsilon 2, epsilon 3, they can also be expressed in terms of stresses.
Yes, sir.
So if we replace epsilon 1, epsilon 2, epsilon 3, only variables here are the stresses, stress components. So you put that and then elaborate on that, simplify this. Okay. So this is the total strain energy stored, okay, for complex stress situation, and by elaborating this we get this is the stored energy. Okay. And when we equate this with this stored energy at failure, at yielding, right? So then we can find out what is the failure criteria. We can form an yield function. Okay. Let us cancel 1 by 2IC from this side, and from the left hand side we subtract this right hand side, we make it equal to 0. This becomes our failure criteria. But then this particular strain energy density criteria is not valid as such for hydrostatic loading. You know what is hydrostatic loading? Where sigma 1 equal to sigma 2 equal to sigma 3. Okay. So it can be tested. Okay. You put some material within fluid medium and you increase the pressure of that fluid. In that case, it is observed that that particular material can store much more energy than this particular value. Okay. You can go on increasing pressure. Okay. So that means this particular value is not a proper measure of the stored energy. This also indicates that hydrostatic state of stress that doesn't cause failure. That is there, and that is why we have a deviatoric part of our stress matrix earlier. You recall
Yes, sir.
that was the reason. At that time we mentioned that the deviatoric part and hydrostatic part, they have application in theories of failure.
Yes, sir.
So that is why this strain energy density criteria is then changed into the deviatoric strain energy density criteria. Actually, that is the criteria by von Mises. Okay. Let us go into it first. This is the strain energy density for a general state of stress.
Yes, sir.
Previously we discussed this thing in terms of principal stresses. The same thing actually, whatever. But this is not making the failure. We need to find out the deviatoric part of this strain energy density. So we will discuss it later. Let us go into this part, which is the distortion energy or von Mises theory. So what is the idea here? Strain energy corresponding to that deviatoric part of the stress matrix, and with that we have to take the deviatoric part of the strain matrix. Okay. We will calculate energy from there, or stored energy, the strain energy. So calculating that part is a bit difficult, right?
Yes, sir.
So an alternative approach is, you see, we have already calculated the total strain energy.
Yes.
So this is equal to the energy coming from hydrostatic part U suffix H, and this part is energy corresponding to deviatoric part of the stress. So it is quite easy to find out UH, because here we have hydrostatic stress and the uniform strain. That we can calculate very easily.
Yes.
From there we will form this part of energy, and if we subtract this from the total energy, we will get this deviatoric part of the energy. So this is what is carried out here. Okay. Okay. So this is what you know in principal plane, sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 3, they are expressed as part of hydrostatic loading. So this is 1/3 of sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 3. That is already known. So then what happens? Adding the three principal stresses, we get, this is the thing. So our sigma h is 1/3 of this thing. Okay.
Yes.
And then our total strain energy, what it was, half
1/2.
1/2 is sigma y square. So this is what is done here. This is 1/2e, sigma 1 epsilon 1, sigma 2 epsilon 2, sigma 3 epsilon 3, and then everything is expressed in terms of that sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 3, they are replaced like this, okay, expressed like this.
Here only calculate the strain energy due to the hydrostatic.
Hydrostatic part, yeah. Okay. So
So in hydrostatic part, sigma 1 equal to sigma 2 equal to sigma 3 equal to sigma h.
but you see, this is not the thing. Our state of stress is expressed by sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 3,
Yes.
and that sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 3 is now decomposed in a hydrostatic part and a deviatoric part.
Yes.
Okay. So then, what is happening here? We have sigma 1 epsilon 1 plus sigma 2 epsilon 2 plus sigma 3 epsilon 3.
So in hydrostatic part, if we let the sigma 1 equal to sigma h, sigma 2 equal to sigma h, in only sigma 3 equal to sigma h, that is sigma 1 square plus sigma 2 square plus sigma 3 square minus 2 mu sigma 1 sigma 2 plus sigma 2 sigma 3 plus sigma 3 sigma 1. Only for hydrostatic case. This is the strain energy.
So that is coming actually from this relation,
This one.
from this one. Okay.
This is the main equation.
This is the main equation, and here epsilon 1 is substituted by this.
Yes, sir.
Epsilon 2 is substituted by this. This is becoming the final expression.
But all the values of sigma 1, sigma 2 and sigma 3 is sigma h.
Is sigma h here.
Yes.
Okay. We are only considering hydrostatic part. So this is what we are getting from there.
Yes, sir.
So this part, this is UH, the same thing. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Energy coming from hydrostatic part. This is simplified in some form, and this is what we are getting finally. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's okay.
Yes, sir.
This 3 and this 2 in the numerator, it is 6e.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And 1 minus 2 nu. Oh, how? No. Actually, this 3 and 3 cancel from here again. We
3
are
squares.
getting 3 squared is 9. 3 and 3 is getting cancelled. We are getting 6c.
2 equal to 6.
And this is
A plus B
actually
plus C square whole
a
square.
plus b plus c whole square is giving
Yes.
to this part. Okay. Now, what is this distortion energy? U minus UH, this U we already determined.
Yes, sir.
So we have to go back to that slide once again. We have seen this part, okay,
Yes, sir.
previously. So this minus this is the energy coming from deviatory part, okay. So this quantity again, they can be further simplified, okay. Something is there, and the simplification of this right hand side will give rise to this part, okay. So this is the energy coming from deviatory part. This is the right hand side,
Yes, sir.
okay. You check it afterwards. The slides will be available to you. So from here you will get the distortion energy stored is equal to this. Okay. Now next what we have to find out, what is this distortion energy corresponding to failure. Failure means in uniaxial state of stress corresponding to our material testing. Okay. So there sigma 1 is Sy means the yield stress value, say y, capital value or whatever, Sy, and this sigma 2, sigma 3 they are 0.
Yes.
Okay. So here you see sigma 2, sigma 3 0 means all these 5 terms they are 0, only we are having this sigma 1 square means Sy square.
Yes, sir.
So 1 plus nu by thrice E into Sy square. So this is equated with this, right? So this part is equated with this part.
Yes, sir.
This is equal to equal. Now, this is a common, okay, or this Sy,
Yes.
actually, if we subtract this thing, this is common multiplier, it will become 0. This is only Sy value, but it is also possible to express a failure criteria function, failure function.
Okay, sir.
This is the condition. Whatever. This is the condition. Okay. So in 2D state, we have sigma 3 is 0, or say sigma 2 is 0, sigma 1 and sigma 3 is there. This is what we will get.
Yes.
And in pure shear, okay, sigma 1 is equal to minus sigma 3.
Yes.
What would be the nature of Morse circle? Center at 0,
This type.
center of 0, you put sigma 1 and sigma 3 at the two other edges. So here tau is equal to this sigma 1 and this is equal to minus sigma 3. This is clear? So sigma 2 is 0. If we put this in this failure criteria, okay, this is what we are getting.
Under block 3 tau.
Okay. This sigma 1 square
Tau
and minus sigma 3 is sigma 1. So again another sigma 1 square, sigma 3 is sigma 1, another sigma 3, 1 square, thrice sigma 1 square. So this is our tau max square. So from here Sy or tau max is Sy by root 3. It's okay. So this is 0.577 Sy is tau max. This is where failure will occur.
Yes.
So these points are matching with that Tresca's criteria. Okay. These are shear stress value. At those 6 corner points, these values will match. Okay, whatever. So this is the criteria given by von Mises. This is von Mises criteria. This is a particular case corresponding to pure shear. Okay, if it is a 2D plane stress case, then this is the condition. For a general state of stress, this is the condition. So actually these values, they are particular values.
Yes.
This is for pure shear.
Pure shear.
In general, state of stress can be anything, right? So that we have to plot in a stress space. Okay, this is the thing. What is the thing developed independently some equation by different method involving octahedral stresses. So this is the thing, that these values are identical with octahedral stress theory. This is what we are going to discuss now.
Yes.
Okay. let us see what is octahedral shear stress theory. This is octahedral shear stress theory, right? So here the criteria is that a failure occurs when the induced shear stress in octahedral plane is equal to the shear stress corresponding to failure at the octahedral plane when material is tested under uniaxial testing. Okay, say we are carrying out a test in uniaxial testing, uniaxial test UTM. In such a situation, we can find out what is the induced shear stress in octahedral plane. And for any general state of stress, we can again find out what is the induced shear stress in octahedral plane. So we'll equate the induced shear stress in a general complex state of stress in octahedral plane, and we'll equate that with the octahedral stress that is coming under material testing. Yes, uniaxial stress state of the material testing situation. So then we will get a failure rate. So this is octahedral shear stress theory, and this is equivalent to distortion energy theory. So what is octahedral shear stress? Okay, let us go back to our stress analysis discussion. This is what we have seen earlier.
Yes, sir.
These are octahedral planes. You know how this has to be formed. First, we need to express the state of stress in principal plane, and corresponding to principal plane, we form these octahedral planes. We have to take some directions which are equally inclined to these principal planes. These are the direction cosines of that line, normal direction. This you know. And then on this plane, we have a normal stress sigma octahedral, we have a shear stress tau octahedral. Okay. The general expression of that sigma n and tau, they are given like this. Okay. If we are in this particular direction, which is equally inclined to these principal directions, then what is sigma n? This sigma n is this sigma octahedral.
Yes.
And this is becoming 1/3 sigma 1 plus sigma 2 plus sigma 3. This is equal to our I1 first invariant. So sigma octahedral is 1/3 of I1. And what is this tau octahedral in this plane? Okay, here n1, n2, n3 again they are 1 by root 3. Okay, we put that. This is our tau octahedral. Okay, it would be like this. You simplify this thing, it will become like this. Okay. So this is what we are getting from this thing, and ultimately tau octahedral from this expression, it is something like this. Okay, this is what we'll get. And again, when we are in principal plane, this is our I1 first invariant, this is our I2 second invariant. So this tau octahedral can be expressed like this.
Yes.
And then you see, if we are using the deviatoric part of the stress matrix, then this is 0, this I1 is 0 for the deviatoric state of stress.
Yes.
So this tau octahedral is dependent only on the second invariant of the stress matrix. So these are the things. So now corresponding to this, what will happen? What is that octahedral shear stress corresponding to uniaxial state of stress? Is it okay? Is it coming like this? This is tau octahedral. This is tau octahedral. Okay. Or we can take this thing as well, whatever.
Yes, sir. Sigma 2 and sigma 3 is 0. That means 2 sigma 1 square by 9.
Right. Square by 9.
2 sigma square by 9.
So that means root 2 by 3
into sigma.
sigma by. This is the thing. So we'll equate this tau octahedral with this value.
Yes.
So that will give us the failure criteria.
Yes.
Okay. So again, this failure criteria will match with the failure criteria of von Mises at this particular case, at this particular state of stress, pure shear condition. You see, we will get back this particular value. Observe here, what is our tau octahedral? Sigma 1 is minus sigma 3, sigma 2 is 0. What is the value we are getting? Sigma 1 minus sigma 3.
8 by 9 sigma square.
This is 2 squared,
Sorry, sir, sigma
4. This is 2 squared, sigma 3 minus sigma 1 is 2 sigma 1. Okay, and 2 square is 4 by 9.
6 by 9 sigma square.
How that?
This is sigma 1 square.
This sigma 1 square, right?
This is also sigma 1 square.
Right.
This is 4 sigma 1 square.
So
That
6 by 9.
That means 2 by 3 sigma 1 square. That means 2 by 3 sigma 1 square.
It cannot be 2 by 3. Tau octahedral is 6 by 9, right?
Yes, sir. 6 by 9.
6 by 9 is 2 by 3. So root 2 by root 3.
Yes, sir. Root 2 by root 3 sigma 1.
No, it should be sigma 1 is tau by root 3. Is it? What was the value? Tau by root 3?
Tau by root 3.
Sigma 1 is sy by root 3. This is what we are getting from von Mises theory. Here also it should come as sigma y by root 3. Is it not? This is tau octahedral. Okay, it should come as that sy by root 3 for that particular state. Sigma 1 equal to minus sigma 3, sigma 2 is 0. Okay. In that,
Yes, sir. This is
it is coming like this.
Yes, sir. This way. The tau octahedral is under root of 2 by 3 sigma 1.
Okay.
And,
So,
and here in exercise test tau octahedral is under root of 2 by 3, under root of 2 by 3 sy.
sy.
That is sy. That means sigma 1 equal to sigma sy by root 3. 2 to under root 2 to cancel.
Okay.
And that means 0.577. Yes, sir.
Okay. This is matching now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So whatever is the value, you equate with this particular one, and then root 2, 3, they will cancel something. We are getting the identical result. Okay. So this is the thing. Octahedral shear stress theory is identical with distortion energy or von Mises theory. And now, what else is there? We will observe these stresses in stress space. So some discussion on stress space is important here. So what is a stress space? That means for any general state of stress, we can always find out the principal stresses, sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 3.
Yes, sir.
And actually that is what is done in the construction of this octahedral plane. This is what is done, and then octahedral stresses were obtained. So So this is shown in this diagram. Okay. And then again you see in this diagram we considered a direction which is equally inclined to all the principal stress directions.
Yes.
So this is the line. Its direction cosines are 1 by root 3 each. Okay. So along this line, what happens if we take any point on this line?
Yes, sir.
Obviously, its projection on this sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 3 axis would be equal.
Yes, right.
So this is sigma 1 equal to sigma 3 equal to sigma 3 axis. This also we can say.
Yes.
And we say this is our sigma m axis, hydrostatic components.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this line gives the hydrostatic components. So in general, any state of stress, it has two components. One is along this particular line,
Yes.
and if we drop a perpendicular from this point P to this line, particular point N, then this line ON, okay, this measure gives us the hydrostatic component,
Yes.
right? And this part, this gives the deviatory part.
Yes.
And we have already seen this deviatory part causes failure.
Yes.
Is it clear? So now this P point we can move such a way that, say, the distance Pn is r. Okay. So if we move this particular line in a circle, okay, this particular line ON is the axis of that rotation, then we will get a circle. So this circle predicts the failure. Okay. So this is the thing. So when we see this as a circle, that means we are viewing in the direction of this line. And what would be this direction? Sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 3. If we view it in this direction, they would be equally inclined, 120 degree apart. So in this direction, the failure criteria, you see von Mises failure criteria, octahedral shear stress failure criteria, they would be governed by this circle.
Yes.
And when we consider only the deviatory part, okay, we are considering this circle through the origin. Because in that case, this hydrostatic part is neglected.
Yes.
So if this hydrostatic part is neglected, this circle will come down here, origin. So this part is called, this is known as the failure plane, pi plane in general, pi plane. But when we shift this in the origin, they are known as pi 0 plane, passing through origin. So failure occurs in this particular plane. We can consider failure in this particular plane only. Okay. This is a visualization of the stress space. So this is how we will see this, and when we go into the post elastic phenomena, actually the circle can grow. This particular circle can grow when our yield function is less than 0. We are in elastic region, then we can increase the radius of this circle up to yield stress value. This is clear? And beyond that point, what will be the phenomena? This is shown here, actually this is post elastic phenomena. Okay. So there the first invariant is of no consequence. Actually we have to predict or find out what are the second invariants, and then there are some conditions there those are relevant in our theory of plasticity. So this is not part of our coursework. Okay, we are restricted to this circle only, and in our case the circle can grow up to yield stress value. This radius can grow up to sigma. So this is one aspect of our visualization of, say, octahedral stress or any other state of stress. Okay, this is clear in that case. Okay, so this is what we have discussed so far. So this hexagon which we are getting actually for this is the shape we obtain for the Tresca's maximum principal stress theory, right? Sigma 3 equal to 0, we projected it, it became like that. But if we view it in the direction of this normal, in that case the failure criteria of Tresca will appear as a hexagon. Okay, maximum shear stress theory.
Yes, sir.
Shear stress theory, and this is deformation energy theory, this circle. Okay.
That is von Mises.
This is von Mises, identical with octahedral shear stress also. So you understand this is a different view, and this again is in plane sigma 1 and sigma 2 only. That means this is von Mises failure plot for a principal for biaxial plane stress situation, sigma 3 0. And in that case again we have mentioned that these 6 corners of the hexagon will match. Okay, this you draw straight line from this, what you will get back is Tresca's failure rate. Okay, this is the thing, but actually this whole thing should be visualized from this normal direction, we will get view like this. Okay. So that way every failure criteria can be viewed in sigma 1 sigma 2 plane as well as in sigma 1 sigma 2 sigma 3 plane. If we view it in sigma 1, that means plane stress situation. Then we have already seen this is maximum distortion energy theory. The hexagon part, okay, there is a hexagon part which is maximum shear stress theory. This dotted line, this line, you understand this. And then there would be maximum principal stress theory. This one, actually this is a square. This square, and maximum principal strain theory will appear like this. Okay. And then if we make a comparison of the different failure theories for different types of stress conditions. This is uniaxial stress. This is a pure shear case. Okay, this is another sigma y is tau y. So this is some other condition. You see, check this. But here, when this is pure shear, these values are 0.577, 0.577. For Tresca's, it would be 0.5, right? Maximum shear stress 0.5. So this is the comparison of the various failure theories. Okay. And then there are some experimental verification also. Okay. The experimental verification was carried out with these two particular failure theories. One is the Tresca's one, the other one was for von Mises one. Okay. What was the experiment? The experiment was carried out for a biaxial state of stress. This series of tests was carried out by Taylor and Quinn. Okay. You understand what is the test? They took a cylinder, right? This is a cylinder. the cylinder is under torsion, as well as there was a axial stress on this cylinder. So on an element here, this element is under torsion, that means there is a shear stress, and there is a stress in this axial direction, sigma direction. Okay, normal stress. So corresponding to this state of stress, the principal stresses is this.
Yes.
Okay. And then corresponding to Tresca's criteria and corresponding to von Mises criteria, these are the failure equations that we are getting. Okay. So now what? They actually carried out the test in different combinations of tau and sigma values.
Sir, here K means the yield stress.
Actually not yield stress, K corresponds to failure condition. So it is not that K is always yield. There are some intermediate cases as well. The failure can occur due to some combined stress values. Okay, so that is represented by that K, some failure condition. K is some representation of failure condition. Okay, and this particular value is corresponding to yield when it is expressed in terms of yield stress. The equations are like this. That means if we express this tau in terms of sigma y and this normal stress in terms of sigma y, actually this is also 0 to 1, it has a multiplier of 0.01. Okay, actually this scale, okay, they have a multiplier of 0.1. Because here value is 1. If sigma value is equal to sigma y, failure will occur. Here also, if shear stress is equal to 0.5, okay, failure will occur corresponding to Tresca's criteria. And if the value is 0.577, failure will occur corresponding to von Mises criteria. Okay, and these are some intermediate values where experimentally failure occurred. So it is not that every point, at every point we will get these conditions. K is some condition which indicates failure. Okay. So these are the failure points, and what is observed is that the failure points are in better match with von Mises criteria, and this is Tresca's criteria, but this is a more conservative equation. This is true. Now this is not the only test that Taylor and Queeny carried out. There were some more tests for pressure vessel sort of thing also. When they were under pressure, there were a lot of experiments that Taylor and Queeny carried out. Actually, these are verifications of the theories of failure. Yes. Okay, then we have mentioned about some more failure criteria. So these are basically in other branches of mechanics or engineering, you can say more Coulomb yielding criteria. Okay, we are not going into that detail. In civil engineering, this is an important failure criteria, more Coulomb. Then there is a Drucker pressure yielding criteria. This is in solid mechanics problem. This is also in civil engineering application. This Griffith failure criteria, we use it in fracture mechanics, right? And some energy based one, some further elaboration on
We have
Griffith's
a course
failure?
in
Achha. Okay. So you are studying this thing in your fracture mechanics course. Okay. So these are some more failure criteria. Many other failure criteria are there. Okay. These are some of the problems, okay, which you have to solve. Such problems comes usually in your examination, right? Okay, you will be able to solve these things. Okay, if you face any problem with this, okay, slides should be available to you. Study the problems. We can discuss it afterwards, right? So this is about the failure criteria, theories of failure, right? Let's stop here as such. The next discussion would be this displacement equation of equilibrium and the problem formulation part.